Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon takes pride in selling the tools farmers and tradespeople rely on. Like our Winnipeg location, Brandon carries the same tools you know and love. From all the brands you can trust, all in one convenient place. And with unbeatable service, we'll make sure you get the right tools to get the job done. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon, proud to serve Brandon's industrial needs since 2018. Stop on by today at 358 Park Avenue East. And good morning, Buffaloes Nation. Sorry we're a day late on this one. It's been a crazy week over here at the G Show Productions Network with everything we've got going on, but happy to be back on this Thursday morning. Of course, a day later than usual for the official Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast. I'm your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. We're brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Be sure to check them out today. 995 Milt Siegel Drive if you happen to be in the Winnipeg area, as well as checking out their website at cancentralsportscards.com for more details. We're also brought to you by, as you can see in the top right-hand corner, Terrico Goaltenders, and as you saw by our first commercial to start off this episode, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools. For Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, be sure to visit their store locations in Winnipeg and in Brandon today. They're your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs here in the province of Manitoba. As for this small town Manitoba Hockey Academy, an academy who, well, one of their teams in particular has been making some noise so far in these playoffs. We did this interview with Gordy Tumbleson this week a few days ago, so this is a bit outdated at this point, but I think there's still a lot of value in the conversation that me and Gordy ended up having, talking about this U17 group, the U18 male prep Buffaloes, as well as all the other teams in the academy as they get set for their playoffs, as each team in Pilot Mountain is going to be slowly but surely getting into the playoffs very soon here. I guess not slowly but surely. It's going to happen pretty quick. I feel like playoffs may be over before we know it. But yeah, lots of great stuff to talk about today. We'll also talk about a commitment that Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy has seen from one of their players to that next level of the junior stage. And yeah, lots of great stuff coming up in this edition of the official Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast, the Buffaloes podcast, for episode 24 in season 2. Gordy Tumbleson, the only guest on this week's show, joining the show next. And it's Gordy Tumbleson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. Gordy, great to have you on the show. I know we were going through technical difficulties a bit last night, so great to be able to get this interview done here today. And yeah, a special moment this past Saturday for a lot of the players on the male U18 prep male Buffaloes squad, taking on NAC's Northern Alberta Extreme on Seniors Day. Not the way that the Buffaloes would have hoped it went on the scoreboard, but always nice to recognize and celebrate seniors no matter what, isn't it, Gordy?
No, it's a perfect time. Those kids have come to us, and a lot of the kids come for their first year, and that's amazing. They come for their grade 12 year. the pilot mound to finish their career, mainly because they're looking for a place to play to help them get a little bit better and get them some recognition so that they can be seen by the right people and all those kinds of things. So, yeah, they we had 13 young fellas graduate. They're going to graduate this year, and they all graduate for real. They don't graduate because we tell them they graduate. They graduate because they do well in school. Most of them are in the 80 plus range of marks. I think all of them are in the 70 plus range in marks. And that's all. That's a sort of a demand from the schools and from the hockey academy. We just don't want to have people, floating and barely making it through the process. So, our school program, we call them student athletes for a reason. They're students first, and the fact that we don't win as many games as we'd like to or championships is neither here nor there. The fact is they get better as players, but they're really good in school, and we make sure of that. And the other thing is they travel so darn much. I don't know how they do it. They're on the road there, but they spend time on the bus and they spend time reading and looking at stuff on their laptops or their iPads and all that kind of thing. So I guess that's the way it works today. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, congratulations to those 13 Buffaloes that end up graduating out of this year's program. And on to bigger things. I'm sure the hope is for all 13 of them. But yeah, they ended up, of course, taking that loss against Northern Alberta Extreme on the Sunday. They get prepared now for upcoming playoff matchups as there'll be four on the schedule starting up on March 12th down in Summerlin, BC, and then going over to Penticton, British Columbia as well. But as we talk and get into the playoffs here, Gordy, what's going to be the focus for this U18 Male Prep Buffaloes group heading into leading up to their trip to BC this year?
Well, it's playing their best, and they've had lots of time to get to be better, so they should be playing their best and maybe surprise some teams. We're at the bottom of the league standing, or second or third last, and that's okay. We're in our realm. We're playing against teams of our own caliber. That's good, and maybe it'll be a bit of a surprise for some. Won't be for us. We know we've got decent players and guys that are pretty good at what they do, but at the end of the day. We're hoping to surprise some teams, and if we can get some really great goaltending from our two kids out of the States, or at least Aiden Trapp out of Tennessee. I guess Sanchez is still suspended, but if we get Aiden to play some good games, hopefully he'll get recognized by a lot of teams as well as play really good, and we can pick up a championship in that division.
Yeah, no doubt. Those Buffaloes team looking to use that, I guess, underdog status among the other teams in the CSSHL, this division in the U18 male preps of the playoffs coming up on March 12th, as they'll be starting off in Summerlin, British Columbia. Gordy, the first team to start off their playoffs was the U17 male prep Buffaloes. They ended up playing their first game back on Sunday, losing in a close one to North Shore. They'll be back in action this morning in Summerlin, British Columbia to take on Wenatchee Wild Hockey Academy. This team for the Buffaloes, of course, we talked about last week, something to play for them as well as every team competing in the playoffs. So yeah, take me through their opening game of the playoffs or yes, on Sunday against North Shore.
Yeah, it was a good game, 4-2. Yeah, the other guys outshot us by a little bit, but Barrett Hayes played really well in goal for us. We just didn't weren't able to solve the other guy, and that's too bad. But the kids played well. Funny that U17 team under Rick McConnell, if I remember correctly, almost every year, and including the year we won the championship out in BC back in 2020. We lose our first game always, and I don't know how they do that. They get in there and they tell me it's bus legs, and I go, well, okay, it's a long ride, but you get there the day before. It's not like you get there 5 minutes before the game. So bus legs, I know sure that may be an excuse, but not a good reason. However, at the end of the day, we're looking for them to continue that lose the first game, win everything after that sort of routine, and they're quite capable of doing that. So we're looking for them to rebound nicely later today as we speak on this interview, and come up with a win and carry on through the playoffs.
Yeah, and quite interesting that that's been a trend that they end up usually losing that first game. And yeah, bus legs, I mean, maybe an excuse that Rick McConnell may have is this is a bit of a younger Buffalo squad compared to other years. But given that, and even though they lose their first game, right, and it ends up being a close one, how huge do you feel it is, given this team's history, this part of the program specifically, as they seem to roll after getting that first loss out of the way? How huge do you think getting that first game is out of the way for the nerves for this group specifically?
It's important. It's too bad you have to lose the first game, but nonetheless, you go out and you play it, and you get used to it, and you figure it out. The neat part is, they're quite capable. They are a young team, and so we're hoping that we get, all those kids come back, that we're going to lose. I know we lose both of the goalies, but we got two young guys coming up under our U15 program that are going to fill in quite nicely. But with the rest of them, if we can get that year experience, this is all a great experience for them, if not for this year, certainly for next. And so, maybe that's what happened with the selection of players this year was okay. Let's rebuild and let's just try and get ourselves a championship in year two of this group, rather than worry so much about this year. Be good, but let's try to be even better in year two. So I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, there's plenty of time for us to see the answer to that question or to that theory. And yeah, this Buffaloes team back in action. As we're doing this pre-recorded interview this morning, 9:30 a.m. down in Penticton. So they'll be taking on the Wenatchee Wilders, sorry, in Summerlin, Gordy, as they'll be playing in that part of BC. We're going to take a quick little break here, Gordy. Then we're going to move on to talking about the U18 female prep Buffaloes as well as the U15 male prep Buffaloes as we preview a bit of their playoffs coming up next on the Buffaloes podcast with myself and Gordy Tumbleson. Welcome back to the Buffaloes podcast with myself and Gordy Tumbleson. We've talked about the U18 male prep buffs as well as the U17 male prep buffs. The U17's already underway in their playoff action. As for the female prep program and the male prep U18 program, they'll be getting set to play playoffs very shortly here. But for the U18 female prep, Gordy, they got two games on the schedule coming up on the 7th, so this Friday, and then on Sunday, playing against North Shore, the Warriors on Friday night, and then the Sunday afternoon matchup against Balmoral Hall for this Buffaloes squad. They ended up losing their final game of the regular season, 3-2 to Balmoral. This team's been playing better and improving all season long. Give us an update on, I guess, how this group specifically, from what you've heard, is feeling heading into their playoffs coming up shortly at the end of this week.
Yeah, what I know is that they're feeling pretty good about themselves. And again, that girls hockey, female hockey has got to feel good, and then you can play good. Boys hockey is you play good so you can feel good. So it's that reverse psychology between the genders, and that's okay. So we're going in feeling pretty good about ourselves. And if we can get a break in some scoring and some saves, get a goal post out of the net rather than into the net, type of a thing. Yeah, this team could win the whole thing out there. This division championship. They're certainly capable of beating any of the teams that we're going to play. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we did do that. I might be surprised a little bit, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, that's we can be a decent hockey team if we all come to play. And again, you get some good goaltending, which we've been pretty good in goal all season long. That shouldn't be a problem for us. So, we're looking for maybe a little bit of a surprise at the end as well. And these kids are capable of it.
Yeah, and a team this season, as we've talked so many times, that fares way better when they've locked in and locked down in their defensive game. I'm sure that's going to be the pathway to victory for them to have any sort of success against these teams is, of course, focusing on that defensive strategy and then letting the offense take care of itself.
Yeah, it's we're not overly endowed with offensive players. We've got a few people, and the other kids chip in here and there. But if we can lock down on the defense, which is a lot of this in female hockey is that, locking the defense down, not giving up too many goals, forcing the other team to make mistakes on the offensive side, and then get down the other end of the rink and pop some goals in and get some. We need maybe we need to score more dirty goals. Those tip ins from right in front, the rebounds, banging around in the goal crease with the goalie, and doing all that fun stuff that forwards will do to try and win a hockey game. So hopefully that's the case, and we come away with some timely goals.
We just finished talking about the U17s and how they ended up losing that first game, right? And for the Buffaloes, I mean, maybe it could be easy to just look ahead and see that Balmoral's on that schedule on that Sunday, a team from Manitoba, of course, that they came very close to beating in their final game of the season against them back on February 28th. But how do you feel like Kurt Fortney and this coaching staff is going to be looking to keep this team present and really preaching that message that it's about one game at a time at this point, taking care of North Shore first?
Well, assistant coach Kurt and head coach Ryan Carls are, they're seasoned guys. I mean, they've done this now for a couple of seasons together. They know what this is all about. They've got a strategy, and I think we've talked about that on the defensive side. And yeah, there's no reason for us to look forward to Balmoral before we get ahead of this, ahead of ourselves because we can beat this team we're going to play on the first day. And it'll be interesting to see what they do in all cases. I think we have a day off after our first game, all four teams, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I know the U17s and U18 females do. And looking at that, what they do with that day off, maybe they can relax a little. Maybe that's the relax thing, or climb a mountain or do something that they wouldn't normally do back here at home, and get a little more free and freewheeling, and then do real well in the game. So we'll see. We'll see how their day off goes after we get a win on our first game. How's that? Hmm.
Yeah, there you go, right? And should be a fantastic experience too for those players to be able to see the beautiful sights down in BC. A bit jealous, Gordy, that
Yeah.
players in this academy get to do this every season. But yeah, wishing the best to this U18 female prep Buffalo squad that's going to be taking on North Shore to start off their playoffs coming up this Friday. As for the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy Buffalo's U15 prep squad, Gordy, a team that finished 11th ranked this year, they'll be in the Tier 2 division of the playoffs in the U15 prep in the CSSHL playoffs for a squad that, of course, you could make an argument maybe had the best showing out of any team throughout the academy of this year, a team that had loads of talent, and a team that's going to be starting off playoffs on Friday. And just to fact check you, go to the U15s, a team that won't have a day off on the Saturday as they'll be right back at it against Notre Dame. But back-to-back games for this young squad. I'm sure they're up for it, though, Gordy. The excitement, I'm sure, at a very high level for Colin Fafara's group heading into these two playoff games.
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for correcting me on the day off thing. That's okay. Yeah, these guys that's what this academy hockey is all about, playing day after day, sometimes 2 days, two games in a row. They won't do that, of course, in CSSHL hockey, but in tournaments they do. Yeah, this is the one team that this year that we would hope that they could drive for that championship. They missed the tier one designation by in losing to the RHA on in their last game. Unfortunately, it was kind of like which team goes to 10th and which team goes to 11th. So we were beaten in that one, but now we're kind of a top dog in the tier two division, and so expectations I know are higher, and but the kids have got to come to play and play with some discipline, keep the puck away from our net a little bit better than we have in the past maybe, and get down to the other end. We have some goal scoring people, and they're little buzzsaws. This hockey team, they can go, and that's what we're looking forward to. A lot of hard skating, lots of plays, force the other team to make mistakes and capitalize on those while keeping the puck out of our net.
I mean, so close to making it into the top division of the playoffs, but just missing out on it, I don't think that big of a deal, right? Because you
No,
end
it's not a
up
bad
being
thing.
the top seed in this division compared to the bottom seed in what would be the top division. But of course, rankings go out the window when it comes playoff time. How do you feel like this group? With like you always say, all the P and V that they play with, but how do you feel like they're going to handle that pressure of knowing that even though rankings go out the window, they are still the top team heading into these playoffs in this division specifically?
Yeah, I think they've ignored that completely. This it was get into the tier one or play in tier two. Doesn't matter where you are, you got to win the games anyway. So, you're and this is all part of the learning process for players in sport, any sport, is you don't take your opponent too easily. It doesn't matter if they're the 20th team in the thing. They can beat you if you show up and don't and aren't ready to play. And that's happened a bazillion times in sport, in every sport. And so let's not get caught up with that one. So I know the coaching staffs, Brad Platt and assistant coach and head coach Colin Pfaffer are dedicated to playing every shift exactly the way they got to play every shift. They're not worrying about who ended up where. And I know our goalies don't worry about whether the other team's good or bad. They're going to stop every shot that comes at them that they can. And if it's 10 shots or 50 shots, they're going to work just as hard. So that's what we're built on, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I mean, this team looking to also break a losing streak heading into their first playoff game to Gordy. I mean, you've played this sport before. Once you get one, sometimes all the other wins start to fall. Of course, you never want to get down 0-1 in the playoffs, in no matter what team you are. But we've talked about before with this team, I guess, going in with a losing streak, how huge is that first game specifically for this team to try to come away with that win?
Yeah, the losing streak means nothing at this point, and as would a winning streak. Yeah, as you said, Graham. It's the playoffs. It's different. Everybody ramps up their game 25%, and it doesn't matter how bad the other team is during the season. All of a sudden, who are these people? Did they replace all their players and you got new guys? Because look, they're coming at us like full strength. So, it's playoff time is a different animal, and our guys too will be pumped. So good on that, and good on the league to have championships in each of the tiers, something to work for, something to lean on, not just playing games as we talked about last week. They're gonna come home with a banner if they can do this and get the championship. So good on them to be able to be proud of that. I'm proud of their play all year long and hopefully in the playoffs as well.
For this squad, led by, we've talked about him many times, Cole Landerville, over 100 points this season. I know Maddox Ramage went through some injury troubles as the season went along, but a team with top end talent, a team that's also seen some depth show out as the season's gone along. They got some big time goaltending in terms of players like Gavin Hildebrand, who's been able to show up massive this season. Same with Yuki Kito. What do you feel, Gordy, given all the talent this team has, all the pieces they have, it is going to be the pathway to victory for them, letting our viewers know?
Well, our best players have to be our best players. I think there's a comment comes from all the pro sports guys, but yeah, they got to be, and they will be. They're going to be good. These kids are in tune with this, and then the other guys, the chip in guys, the guys that you don't expect to do as quite as much, can do more, and they will because they see what goes on above them in terms of their playing buddies and their partners. They want to support this thing they want to win just as badly. They will block shots. They will go into the corners and dig the puck out harder. They'll back check harder. They'll do those things that, sometimes the guys who are your best players don't have that opportunity to do or isn't their job. So everybody has a job to do on the rink, and I know that our good guys know what they're expected, and certainly the other players know exactly what they're supposed to do as well. So it's a team game. Everybody has a role.
Well, for these teams in the academy, some of them going to be starting off this Friday, and then for the U18 male prep Buffaloes, waiting a bit longer as they'll be getting going on March 12th. Gordy Tummelson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. Thanks as always, Gordy. Enjoy the playoffs, all the great hockey coming your way, and we'll talk next week.
Thanks, Graham. Always good to be here.
And Gordy Tummelson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast to talk about the final games of all four teams in the regular season, as well as the start to the U17 Male Prep Buffaloes playoffs. We're going to get into their playoffs, how their results have looked so far since dropping that first game against North Shore to start off this week. We're also going to get into some commitment news from around the academy, as well as some other things to end off this edition of the Buffaloes podcast on this week. With this week's edition of the show, Season 2, Episode 24, here on G Show Productions on gshow.ca. We'll be back soon. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And welcome back to the Buffaloes podcast. Gordy Tummelson joined this edition of the show to, talk about everything going on with the teams at Pilot Mound. Of course, it's playoff time coming up now for all teams in the academy, as the U18 male prep buffs, the U18 female prep buffs, and U15 male prep Buffaloes will be starting up very soon. I love how my computer loves to lag too as we get into the end of this episode. But just want to end off with some news. Of course, it was seniors night, or seniors day for the Buffaloes, their U18 male prep program this past Saturday. As they ended up losing to Northern Alberta Extreme, but I think just looking at the main picture here is male U18 prep senior day last Saturday, but Austin Polanowski committing to the Humboldt Broncos in the SJHL for the foreseeable future of his hockey career at that next step. Austin's been fantastic in his leadership role for this Buffalo's male U18 prep program this season. And for Austin, he also ranked top 10 in the whole U18 male prep division in the CSSHL with 55 points in the 36 total games played this season. Congratulations, Austin. Been a huge part of Pilot Mountain's family this year, their U18 squad. Huge part of that team, their leader, moving on to bigger things coming up next in his hockey career. And by the way, as for The CSSHL, they're running some silent auctions throughout these playoffs, so there's plenty of prizes that folks are able to win that they're able to enter in on, which is great to see. The CSSHL, rewarding its fans, stuff like that. Sorry about the lag, everybody. We're gonna have to end off this episode coming up right away, given that, because I really don't know what has happened all of a sudden. This hasn't happened all episode. You just gotta love how technology is sometimes, but if you can hear me, Buffaloes Nation, the U17 male prep Buffaloes, of course, as me and Gordy Tummelson talked about them in this episode, they're going to be playing in the semifinals today in the CSSHL U17 Prep Tier 2 championships. Since dropping their first game against North Shore, their U17 program for Pilot Mound has bounced back pretty nicely. I mean, Gordy Tummelson talked about it. They always seem to lose their first game in the playoffs, but they always seem to come back strong as they followed up that first loss to North Shore with a 6-3 win over Wenatchee 2 days ago on Tuesday, and then also winning yesterday by a score of 4-2 over Star Academy. So Pilot Mound taking on St. George's School today, 11:45 a.m. Pacific time at the Okanagan Hockey Training Center in Penticton, BC. That game can be seen on Flow Sports. There we go. Ain't lagging anymore. You love to see it, but yeah. As for all the rest of the teams in the academy, they're going to be starting off their playoffs very soon here. Best of luck to all of the teams, and yeah, pulling for all of them to at least get some wins in there. If you don't come home with a banner, not the end of the world, but at least show up, compete, and prove to the scouts out there that are watching too for the individuals. Of course, while playing that team game still, but going out and proving yourself, quite an opportunity for all the players that are participating in the playoffs this year for Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. As for us here at G Show Productions at gshow.ca, we're going to have more guests coming up on next week's edition of the Buffaloes podcast. We're going to get into the playoff action, how it's been going up until that point come next week, as well as, talking about maybe the upcoming stuff that Pilot Mound is going to be running in terms of ID camps, evaluation camps, all that great stuff as they get prepared for the upcoming 2025-2026 season. That'll be here before we know it. But first, we're going to continue to take in some great playoff action from all teams in Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. Like I said, hoping the best for all of them down in British Columbia during this year's playoffs. If you've made it to this point of this week's edition of the Buffaloes podcast, thank you for doing so. We're going to end off the episode right here for episode 24, season 2. I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. Special thanks to Gordy Tummelson coming on and joining this edition of the Buffs podcast and being the guest, as well as a special thanks to our sponsors in Make Cannon Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for continuing to support our coverage of Pilot Mound Hockey Academy content here on the network, as well as a special thanks to you, the viewer, for tuning in to this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a like. All that helps our channel out, but you just simply decided to view this episode, we appreciate that support as well that way. But if you are a fan of this Hockey Academy, this is the official Buffaloes podcast. We post weekly episodes, mainly on Wednesdays, but something came up yesterday that I had to deal with. It's been a crazy past 2 weeks as we're getting ready to unveil something new heading into the MMJHL playoffs, which are starting this Friday, as our content's going to be consumed a bit different in that regard. Just to give you a hint, we've been setting up a pay-per-view service. Not customizing one ourselves, but been in talks with the company, and it's been the main focus these past 2 weeks on that. The podcasts have kind of been on the back burner, but we're gonna, of course, prioritize this podcast moving forward once again, since things won't be as hectic coming up for us next week. So we think it is playoff time, so it is our busiest time of the year as well. But enough of me rambling, everybody. I'm going to leave you off with this. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful weekend out there. It's starting to warm up more, especially in the Manitoba area, so go out and enjoy that nice sunny weather if you can here today. It's looks like there's no clouds in the sky today, which is always a great sight to see. Just looking out my window right now. But yeah, Buffs Nation, enjoy all the great hockey coming your way. We'll be back next week to recap everything that's happened from today up until next week. Until then, everybody, we're going to leave you off with Tyson Unro's March of the Buffaloes theme as another Buffaloes podcast in the books. Thanks for watching.